Hi guys, I am Vitold and here are two of the most interesting motorcycles that are somewhat attached to an adventure motorcycle segment, but in fact they are nowhere near adventure in the meaning of enduro. Still, the upright position on them, high seats, still fairly large suspension travel and design suggest that they are potentially for a very similar type of rider. Using an analogy from the car industry, I would call them crossovers. So here's BMW S1000XR and Suzuki GSX-S1000GX. What's special about them, you ask? Their engines and technology, as these are two of the top models from both manufacturers. Add a KTM 1290, a Super Duke GT, and we've got a mighty trio. But we actually don't, as KTM dealers, don't have the Super Duke GT as a demo bike, and so I may only imagine what it's like to ride. Still, these two here in front of your eyes have 999 cubic centimeters 4-cylinder engines, while the KTM has a 2-cylinder engine, so yet a different animal. What I'm going to do here is to compare the BMW and Suzuki in a number of categories and tell you which one I feel does what better. Keep in mind that these are my personal experiences and my feelings, and we all may have them different and may prefer different things in the first place. I've ridden all large and mid-size adventure motorcycles on the market today, so I base my opinions on what I know is possible as well. In the end, I'll tell you which out of these two bikes I would choose and why. Now let's start off with the first category, which is engine and performance. Suzuki's engine produces 152 horsepower and 106 newton meters of torque, while BMW that I've ridden has had 165 horsepower and 114 newton meters of torque. Now in 2024 and on, the XR has even more power at 170 horsepower, but the difference seems insignificant enough for me and I'm skipping it, and I'll continue with the assessment with the bike that I've ridden in 2021, I think. It's still the same XR. Torque also stayed the same, by the way. In a GX, the electronics settings matter, and especially the traction control setting that has 7 different levels and may also be switched off. The thing is that I only feel that number 1 and 2 make sense, while the perfect spot would be 1.5. As in the first, the rear tire may slide too much, and in the second, the engine still has its power limited too much, I feel. It's a bit of a screw up in the end. But then the engine, despite having less power and torque, has much better gearing, I feel, than the XR, as it's got shorter gears, and so switching between them makes a significant difference in performance. That's why the flexibility is also so much better in the Suzuki, at low RPM especially, as the bike is still alive, unlike the XR that you need to rev very high in the first gear, which means you first need to gain a lot of speed going through a sort of a boring area in order to get to the rocket fuel. Now once you get to the top RPM, the XR becomes a fucking rocket ship, and it's likely the quickest bike in the entire segment from that spot on. Quicker even than the GX, which is, well, it is really quick already. Mid-range of the GX is also better and lets you do much more with the bike and shoot forward whenever you want. At high RPM it vibrates terribly, but it's fine in terms of heat management. On the other hand, the XR doesn't vibrate in an annoying way and is also okay in terms of dealing with the heat. The last thing here is the transmission, or rather a quick shifter, which both bikes may have, and it's totally brilliant in the GX. Actually one of the best in the segment of large adventure motorcycles, I believe. Still, this is not exactly an adventure motorcycle, but it's stick to being mentally there and comparing these two also to others in our minds. All in all, I appreciate the XR's immense power near the red line, but I do enjoy the powertrain of the GX much more, and it stimulates me at all times, which I really love. The win here goes to Suzuki. The second point is handling. And here the GX is really fine in riding at low speeds due to being stable and easy to control, while at higher speeds you've got to overcome a certain angle, go further, then to be able to go even further, and then only it allows you to keep it leaning fairly easily. It's not too bad and overall neutral. It's different, and I feel that it actually is more sporty than S1000XR. It's very planted. There is some wobble when accelerating hard at higher speeds, also like in S1000XR. BMW is not as stable at low speeds, and it is harder to control them. It may be better at higher speeds, in comparison to the Suzuki, but still it's not a handling king in my eyes. I feel less fun and control over it in the corners, as it feels harder to manage. It is stable and well balanced, but it needs more encouragement than the, in my eyes, nimbler Suzuki. My vote goes to Suzuki here. Moving to the topic of suspension, where both bikes have electronically adjustable suspensions. Suzuki has soft, medium and hard settings, and soft is, in my opinion, quite similarly comfortable to S1000XR's suspension. Both have 15 centimeters of suspension travel in the front and rear, and both have 17-inch front and rear rims. XR is also quite good and very composed when riding over any sorts of potholes, and this is a huge improvement, by the way, over the previous S1000XR, over its previous generation. If you are into comfort, this generation is definitely for you. Both bikes remain stable no matter what you ride on, but I feel that there is a slight edge on Suzuki's side when it comes to riding over a super bumpy road where it starts gliding like a Star Wars levitating ship over them. BMW is good, but it's not that amazing in this particular set of circumstances. I really like both, but I'm giving it to the Suzuki just because of this one thing. Very impressive. Number 4 to assess is seat and position comfort. Here, both bikes provide a fairly upright sitting position with a slightly forward lean, while BMW does it better in the lower parts, where I feel that the foot pegs are located lower, and so the knee angle is more comfortable, which I do appreciate. Both bikes that you see have their seats at 84 centimeters, while now in 2024 and on, BMW offers the XR with a new different seat that is taller, making you sit at 85 centimeters. Many riders used to complain about the XR seat, so BMW have made it thicker, and I hope that more riders like it now. I liked it then already, by the way. I also like the one on the GX. Both motorcycles have narrower handlebars than their typically adventure-related friends. However, here the win goes to BMW thanks to a better knee angle. On both, the foot pegs are in good spots, but it's about their height that I personally prefer in BMW. Then we've got wind protection, and here Suzuki has a pretty decent windscreen that does quite a fine job, also at high speeds, which is obviously useful in a bike like this. There aren't any worrying turbulences, but the stream of air is quite loud behind it. BMW's windscreen is not perfect either in general, but at least it's easily adjustable between two positions, which in Suzuki requires stopping the bike, unscrewing the screen, and screwing it back in a different spot in order to change the setting. Screwed up by Suzuki, and this brand clearly has issues with windscreens adjustments. Somehow they just can't do it. Just because of this, BMW definitely wins here. It also wins in the category of brakes, because despite both bikes having strong brakes, in BMW they are solid in all areas, whereas the ones in Suzuki feel a bit weird at times. Well, as for BMW and brakes, I'm actually sitting on a BMW 7 Series office chair. It's called 7G11. It's made by Power Seats at powerseats.eu. This is a brilliant thing to sit on. So BMW are actually doing a few things very well. The other one in their cars is interior quality and seats, which are just, I think, the best. Well, in terms of Suzuki's brakes, they do feel a bit weird at times. They are easy to dose, but they don't provide as much confidence in general, and surely not as much as the ones in BMW. The seventh category to compare these in is drivetrain, but they both have got chains, so there's no winner here. Then in terms of fuel tanks, Suzuki can carry up to 19 liters while BMW can swallow 20 liters, so despite the range being what actually matters, let's give BMW a win here. Comparing weight, we've got 232 kilograms of Suzuki GX on the street and 226 kilograms, and now in 124, even to 127 kilograms of BMW, so 5 or 6 kilograms of difference. While let me tell you that Suzuki does feel lighter, both when sitting on, riding it, and moving around. Perhaps it's the position of the handlebars, maybe the front suspension angle, and the length that makes Suzuki feel more manageable in terms of weight and where it's located. To me, I feel more in control of the total weight dealing with Suzuki, and it's pretty strong. It's a pretty strong feeling that makes me point at it as a winner here. Let's move to tech. Similarities here are in both bikes having cruise control, heated grips, quick shifters, electronic suspension and front LED lights. But that's also where some differences start to appear, as in BMW, we are getting a cornering front light. BMW can also have tire pressure monitoring and keyless ignition and a keyless fuel cap. These are unavailable in Suzuki, while it's got a one push engine start, which is cool, but nowhere near as useful as keyless ignition in BMW. So yeah, BMW wins here despite some of the mentioned options being optional, and we've got to pay for them. Well, still, if you want it, you can have it more. You can have more of it in BMW. Category number 11 is sound, specifically engine sound. I love this point, but not so much when talking about motorcycles with 4-cylinder engines. GX has a good deep sound for this kind of engine, while the XR is, I think, too quiet. The previous generation was better with its pops and cracks coming out of the muffler, but emission standards, noise standards kill the industry and the joy for our ears. It is hard to choose the winner here, but I somehow feel like liking Suzuki more in its stock version in this area. But don't quote me on that, and I know that BMW can sound super awesome with an aftermarket exhaust. Still, I'm a V2 engine sound fan, and yeah. Anyway, now a big one. Where I'll keep it short, as Suzuki also kept it short on the drawing boards, clearly. We all have our tastes, and mine tells me that Suzuki, in terms of design, has good proportions, and well, generally it's fucking ugly as hell in its front part, while BMW looks awesome, I think, from every perspective. I would choose BMW to the point of actually questioning whether I could live with the way a stock GX looks. I'm not sure. Now in the price and value for money category, BMW is, and this may come as a surprise, it is just 14% more expensive than the Suzuki, both in their base forms and base prices in my country. They're well matched on paper, but one might expect BMW to be so much more expensive just because of its brand. Visually also better quality, but alright, 14% in terms of ratio is not that much, and this got me thinking. On the one hand, Suzuki being priced almost like a BMW sounds quite risky for them, and I wonder who at Suzuki decided that this would be a good idea sales-wise. I don't think it is, but I haven't seen the sales data. If you especially care about any of the mentioned specific categories of comparison, the price won't make a difference as they are so close. But if you care about an image and value one brand over another, namely if you feel that BMW may, for some unknown reason or known reason, be a premium brand while Suzuki not necessarily, which I believe is actually the case, then those 14% may tip the scales in favor of BMW. So let's give it to BMW here, even despite the entry price being lower for Suzuki. Now my favorite category actually, which is the X factor. There are two things to mention here. BMW gives an amazing thrill when accelerating close to its red line, and it's crazy, and I love it there. Suzuki isn't as crazy there, but it gives you more earlier, while when close to the end of its RPM range, there isn't as much of a sudden shock as there is in a BMW, so it doesn't suddenly start pulling to the way of almost ripping your arms off. I do prefer the X factor of a Suzuki, as I may have it nearly at all times, thanks to different gearing with shorter gears and more juice available earlier. On a racetrack where one could keep the XR at the highest RPM at all times, it could be more exciting in terms of performance. But on public streets, I am more excited about riding the GX. And I do recommend that you watch my full review of it to better understand it. It's linked there in the description along with a full review of the XR as well. Now, all in all, if I were blind and just wanted to enjoy the ride, I would go with Suzuki. If I were to place the bike in my living room, it would be the BMW. Talking about which bike I own, I would prefer to tell that I've got a BMW, but in the end of the day, we've got to choose between a full package and a full pack. And you guys likely already know which aspects of riding are the key for you. And you may verify my experiences during a test ride and then make a final decision. What I would do really myself, I think I would get the Suzuki and just try to modify its ugly face somehow, because that's the most painful thing in it. To me, it's a more exciting bike, while both are really impressive and too expensive. It is a tough one. So please do let me know what you guys think, and see you in the next video.